All righty, welcome in to another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of hockeyroyalty.com. Tonight is just Mr. Joe and I. Russell had a fun day out in the parade, so if you're stuck with the dynamic, do so. We're going to be talking about the last two games, coast-to-coast segment, and getting into our Clarke boy here. All aboard the Clarke train. You know what to do. Get in the chat, like and subscribe. Let's go. Well, thank you guys for coming in here tonight. Joe, I know the World Series didn't end how you wanted, and that's where Russell was at today, going and enjoying the accoutrement. That is the parade. But other than the outcome, how are you doing?
Still very, very, very frustrated. Very frustrated from the World Series. I'm going to say really quick, though, a full disclosure. Not a metal guy at all.
Mm-hmm.
However, this intro has grown on me. I'll listen back, and as soon as I hear that royalty in the beginning, I'll be honest, I get a little chill. So stick taps to Ezera because that is for somebody who's not a metal guy. That's grown on me. But I don't know, Randon. I'm angry. I'm very disappointed the way that. Frankly, that inning went down for the Yankees. Obviously, the first three games were abysmal. But I got to say, we are obviously an LA podcast. And so full marks to the Dodgers. They were a much better team. I'm honestly, I'm glad that Ohtani was not hurt that badly to where he couldn't play after that slide injury. They're a great team, great manager, great team. Stick taps to them. Happy for Russ, happy for everybody that's in LA land. I've got a couple bets I've got to pay off. I've paid off one on Twitter already. He's got a Venmo coming his way. Kyle Garcia. So I will be showing up to one of these podcasts in a Dodger hat. That is a bet I made with our Hockey Royalty member, Kyle Garcia. So I'll have to lick my wounds, but it is what it is, Brandon. Disappointing failure for the Yankees. Credit to the Dodgers. Looking forward to talking hockey and getting rid of the Yankee crap. So, Brandon, how are you?
Doing well. I was happy. As many people know, my mom is a Dodger fan, longtime Dodger fan, born in LA, and they've been kind of my second team my whole life. Mm-hmm. Even though it's hard to replace your first love in the Oakland days, but I was happy for her. I was rooting for the Dodgers. I was tired of the 2020, it's a BS World Series, yada, yada stuff that's been going around the internet. So I'm glad they got to put a stamp on that and put those chirps to rest. So it's good. And then a lot of guys that you like on the team, like that didn't get to celebrate in 2020, like Kershaw and stuff like that. You could see it in their faces today. So some just solid guys that got to experience the mountaintop later on in their career. And so it was just good for them. It was good baseball for the most part. I mean, some games were blowouts, but, it had its moments here and there. And so ultimately it was good to kind of watch baseball again because, like, I kind of boycotted it all season. So to flip on some games and kind of watch some baseball, considering that was the sport that I played growing up, was really good. Other than that, obviously I'm high on my own supply with the Clarke train in full stroke, but we'll get to that later on in the pod. We'll do a full segment on Clarke. But the team went 1-1. They won the game that maybe we didn't think they were going to win, and stunk in the game that they should have won. But either way, it's a split ski between the Sharks and Vegas. I think it just shows that even though the parity sometimes in the NHL is pretty wide. It is a pro league. It's pro players versus pro players. And, sometimes the teams can win those games. It's like they say any given Sunday, the Sharks were just a better team. They won. It was what it was. And then the next night, the Kings show up and take it to Vegas, where Vegas has usually had the upper hand in the regular season against us. Overall, Joe, exiting the month of October, as you see scrolling across the bottom, if you're watching live, the team is doing a pretty good job, right? They're second place in the Pacific. They are right there at 14 points, right behind the Golden Knights. So 6-3-2. So they're 3-0 at home. Last year they had a pretty bad home record. So 3-0 at home. What are you kind of feeling about this team after October? And then we'll dive into the 2 games.
Yeah, this is a timely question. I'm going to have an article coming out tomorrow morning, just kind of looking back at October, some of the things that went well, some of the things that didn't go well. But ultimately, it's sitting at 6-3-2. That's a hell of a start.
Yeah.
You had the first 7 games on the road. You had 8 of the first, I'm sorry, 8 of the first games on the road of the 11 on the road, and to come out with 14 points. Their 5-on-5 numbers are really strong. I mean, there's a lot to like right now, which is I still can't get it still feels weird, and I don't know if that makes sense. So, reason I say that is
it does.
The reason I say that is, the 5-on-5 numbers are strong. The Kings have had pretty strong 5-on-5 numbers for a while now. So I think we can kind of put to bed the idea that the 1-3-1 is the only reason that the Kings were strong kind of defensively. They've got good defensive metrics, and frankly, they're still getting good offensive metrics at 5-on-5. But it's not happening the way we expected it to happen. Obviously, Doughty's hurt, so a key piece is gone. You've got Byfield has been virtually nothing production-wise. Same with Trevor Morris. Same with Philippe Deneau. Fiala had a really nice goal the other night against Vegas, but he's not exactly clicking on all cylinders. So, you got some key play. Jordan Spence has not had maybe it's this start to the season that we would have hoped. So you've got a bunch of guys that we all figured would be impactful players, really not at all. And yet they haven't missed a beat. So obviously, you've got some other guys that are stepping up in Laferriere. Turcotte's having a great start to the season. We're going to talk a lot about Clarke today. So it's kind of strange because you don't know. You hope as a Kings fan, when Laferriere kind of settles a little bit and comes back to earth, he's not going to shoot 20% all season. That's when you hope that the Byfields and the Moores and the Deneaus, they start to regress, see some positive regression. And really that could be a really good scenario for the Kings because, again, I don't expect some of the production that they're getting from some of these guys to continue. Clarke's not going to get 82 points. But you also figure these other guys aren't going to be where they are on the negative side of things. So you got to be happy if you're a Kings fan right now.
Yeah, it's kind of to me it's the State Fair was just here, and it's kind of like State Fair food. This team is kind of like State Fair food. Is a deep fried Oreo supposed to work? No, but it's delicious, right? So this team, the way they've been playing some games, and how they look, and the players they're trotting out there, it's okay, it doesn't get you excited. Most of the games watching this team play is ugh. But then you get a few Vegas games, you get a few of this other stuff, and you look at the scoreboard and you're like, really? That's where we're at? Yeah. So, I never stare a gift horse in the mouth. I mean, the team's in second place after
11
after 1 month.
It's 11 games.
But it is. But that's what it's I'd rather be where we're at than where Edmonton's at, right?
Right.
So, I think that, we'll get into some of the bright spots and then maybe the negatives, going forward. But I think the team overall, you got to be happy with the second, the second place in the standings. The team's 5-on-5 numbers that you said are doing well. The theme to the entire offseason was young guns. We're getting very impressive production by Clarke, by Laferriere. Akil Thomas popped off the last 2 games when he finally got in the lineup. And then the players that we're depending on in form of Kopitar, still leading the team in points. And a lot of the players that we're depending on needs to kind of pick it up. And if they do, then maybe we got something, another gear that we can hit. I know the bright spot for us is going to be the third with our prediction, but I want to kind of hit some other bright spots on the team. For me, the goalies have been good so far, like pretty decent. And like you said, we thought maybe the 1-2-2 would kind of take away from that and have them make more saves, but they've been okay, right? Like they haven't fallen off a cliff, or my eyes not matching the numbers to you?
No, I don't think you're off. I don't think, the goaltending has been really anything of note. And I guess that's perfectly fine, right? It hasn't been great.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been bad. Kemper's had moments where he's been absolutely incredible. He's made some big time saves and big moments. But overall, I think the goaltending has been okay. I think where we're seeing a dip in goaltending is the penalty kill. Their expected goals against, and this is per HockeyViz, their expected goals against continues to be better than it was last year per 60. And we remember last year, the penalty kill got all sorts of credit for being a top penalty kill all season, which I thought was always a little inflated because of the save percentage. And that's kind of what we're seeing bear out. Like the expected goals against per 60 is actually better this year, but they're just not getting the same amount of saves on the penalty kill, which, I don't know where they're going to end up in terms of their penalty kill save percentage, but I doubt it's going to be, toward the bottom. I think where it is, it'll probably settle somewhere. So the penalty kill will probably get some improvement just by getting a few more saves at some point throughout the season. So, but I guess, considering what the Kings, well, I shouldn't say that. It says they consider what the Kings are spending on goaltending, but Kemper is making a little bit more than what they did last year. So, but it's been fine. Yeah, I would agree, Randon. It's been fine.
I guess where my point is coming from is I think like you've seen the ability from Kemper to steal some games here, and in the games that they've gotten blown out, hasn't been from goaltending. It's been from horrible play in front of the goaltending. So like, to me, they're doing enough to win games. And then we've seen Kemper steal some games as well. So overall, I think it's been okay with flashes of good.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. They have the 29th ranked save percentage as a team on the penalty kill, which obviously is not very good. And I think, and at 5-on-5, they're kind of middle of the pack, which I think is about right. I think their goaltending's average. And then you're going to have some games where they play well, and you're going to have some games where they don't. But I think that's okay.
Let's get into the other one, since we're not going to have a full segment on him. Is Laferriere has kind of found a shot. It's been a little high in the 20% range, so you expect it to come down a little bit, but maybe he's found his stroke and his ability and want to shoot more. What have you seen from Laferriere, being that he's been bounced around a bit on the different lines and has had to produce with multiple line mates, and then him on the power play?
Listen, I think Laferriere has been awesome to start the season. There's no question about it. I mean, you mentioned his production. He leads the team in goals. He leads the team in even strength points. He's got 9 even strength points this season, which leads the team. He's been awesome. And I think, I just wonder, we talked about this going back to the off season, and you just wonder what a player who has that season, his first season under his belt, now he's got that confidence that he knows he's going to play. He knows he's going to be on the roster. He's going to get an opportunity to play on the top line to start the season. And you just wonder what that mindset is and his training in the off season going into it. And like what it just got to have him in such a different mindset entering the season, and you look, he's among the leaders on the Kings in shot attempts per 60. He's among the leaders on the team in shot contributions per 60. And right now they're going in. I don't expect him to score at this level, but it's funny because last year we talked about how Pierre Dubois was having a lot of slot passes, and they always seemed to go to Laferriere, and they were not going in, and Laferriere was not, his shooting percentage last year was not very good. But, lo and behold, the pucks are starting to go in this year. And it's good to see because, he's clearly put a lot of the work in. He looks way more comfortable. He looks like the game appears to be kind of slowing down a little bit for him. Yeah. Which I think you'd expect to see in the player's second year. So, Love what he's brought. And like you said, he's kind of played on a couple of different lines here, right? He's played with Kopitar and Kempe. Then he's played with Fogle and Turcotte. Maybe a little bit now with Byfield. So we'll see how that shakes out. But, really, really good start to the season for LaFerriere.
I'm going to flip it over here to the last game because overall, I think in the beginning for the first month, it's been a negative, but they turned it around in the last game. And Gwen comes in here with the net front presence was much better in the Vegas game. We saw the kill goal right down in the crease. But I think for the month, they have been kind of weak in the center of the ice. We've alluded to a lot of the games where they've lost. They've kind of just been on the outside. What was different about the Vegas game and getting to the crease? Was it just to kill Thomas, or was there kind of an overall identity shift with the Kings?
I mean, I don't know if I want to say that there was a total identity shift necessarily. Honestly, I kind of thought they were aided a little bit by Samsonov made some good saves, but boy, I didn't think those first 3 goals were really good. Obviously, the first one he gave to Fogle. The second one, the Kempe one, I think a number 1 NHL starting goalie may stop that, and maybe the same one with LaFerriere. Those were good opportunities, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I didn't think those goals that went in were great goals. So I think they got a little bit of help. I would say, and this is going to be credit to Andrew Knoll. I saw him tweet this on Twitter. They were opportunistic, which is kind of, when you think of the Kings, that's not always where they fall, because this is not a team that is necessarily sharpshooters, right? They're always a team that is below their expected, they score lower than their expected goals year in and year out. So they're not always a team that's opportunistic, but they were this time around. I think part of it was Samsonov. I didn't think he had a good game. But they capitalized. I think that was the biggest difference, was they got opportunities and they buried them.
Isn't part of capitalization, though, being in the right spots and being in the dirty areas?
Of course. There's no question. Yep. That is no. And to that point, when I look at like the high danger chances though, in that game, it was among the lowest. They had 7 high danger chances in that game, 3rd lowest on the season.
So is it just the result then that's kind of fogging people's minds that the goals went in?
I think, and I look back at the San Jose game. Look at these last 2 games. This is just hockey sometimes. Like they didn't play a very crisp game against San Jose. They dominated what you would expect them to, because they're much better than San Jose. So they dominated the possession. They dominated the expected goals, which you would expect. And they just didn't score enough to win the game. And then you look at Vegas, and they played a strong game. There's no doubt about it, but they were really efficient. They had 6 goals, and again, and only 7 high danger chances. That's really low when you look at, compared to earlier in the season when they played Vegas and lost 6-1. LA had 17 high danger chances at 5-on-5. So I think so much of we look at the result, and I think probably the result to a San Jose loss was maybe a little heavy, like the reaction to it. And, the reaction to a win against Vegas is, maybe a little heavy. They were opportunistic this time. The pucks went in this time. They didn't go in the night before. Sometimes that's hockey.
Then if we take out the Vegas game, do you think this team has played a little soft through the first month?
I think they've played fairly similar to the way they've played in terms of when you say soft, you mean kind of getting with physicality, with getting, into the net front areas, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, they brought in Fogle, who is not necessarily like a physical punch guy, but he's a north and south skater.
Yeah.
They brought in Jeannot. Edmondson has got a couple goals off of his hard slap shot, but his thing is like, he's going to rifle that thing towards the net, and we got to pick up the garbage. So, I mean, outside the few goals that Edmondson has scored, the team really hasn't been cleaning up those rebound opportunities and been in the right locations, in my opinion, through the first month. How has that looked for you? I mean, you throw up a couple graphs that it's been ice cold in front of the net.
So the power play has been really bad in that sense, in terms of a slot presence and down low presence in front of the net. It's been very bad. 5-on-5, I don't think it's been has been that bad. At least according to NHL Edge statistic, they're in the 76th percentile in terms of high danger shots on goal. So they're getting a little bit dirty. Now, in terms of, there's two different ways to look at this. There's like getting into the dirty areas and getting high danger chances. But there's also like that physical play. And I think there's a lot of talk in the preseason, right?
Yeah.
In camp, in the preseason, about how physical this team was. And I don't know that I've necessarily seen that. You got their 6-3-2. I don't care so much about that. I want them to be hard to play against. Like if you're in on a forecheck, I want you to be where I want you to be efficient as well as with your hitting, right? I don't want you to go out of your way to hit somebody, because that can take you out of a play. It can sap energy. But if you can, separate man from puck, be hard to play against, be relentless on forechecks, that's hard to play against. I think in that sense, they're continuing to be that kind of relentless type of team with using their team speed and their speed up front that they've had in the past. I think that's been there, but overly physical, like an imposing team to play against, I certainly don't see that, but I don't know that it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways to impose grittiness, and I think the speed, like you said, I mean, Turcotte exemplifies that, dragging, the back check, as they say, forward check, back check, paycheck. It's like you get the more opportunities with the puck if you're trying to pursue it in a responsible manner and not take the hits there. I think this team, based on expectations of what was said in the offseason, what we saw in the preseason, really didn't live up to the physicality nature, yet they were successful. So like you said, who cares at that point? But I think there's room to improve, and maybe we just need to be happy with the 14 points and see if this team can get some more production out of its players that they paid a lot of money to, and kind of see what November holds.
Yeah, I mean, they're for whatever it's worth, they're among the higher teams in the league in terms of taking penalties. So they're not shy to sit in the box. That said, they're also one of the higher teams in the league in drawing penalties. So there's a lot of special teams play in these Kings games, which, considering how bad the special teams it's been, it's a little surprising that they're 6-3-2. But again, I think you just hit it. Take your 14 points. It's a tough start to the season with so many road games and that trip to start. I think you definitely take that and be happy with it.
So it seems like some of the players that kind of leveled out. Jordan Spence had a tough start, kind of leveled out. Mike Anderson had a tough start, leveled out. We've been getting some goals, even though the defense hasn't been great from Edmondson. Fogel's kind of found his spot on the line. Where's the improvement that maybe you want to target going into November for this lineup?
Well, I'm going to leave the D alone, I think, because I just think that is what it is.
Yeah.
There's no real way to go there. So up front, though, Byfield's got to score. Yeah. They need Byfield to produce. They need Philippe to know if he's going to play as much ice time as he's playing, he needs to produce. Trevor Moore led the team in goals last year with 31. He's got to score. So they're going to need these guys because – and you see, we saw it the last couple of games. We've started to see Byfield is back in the middle. Turcotte was moved up to the wing with Kopitar and Kempe, and I thought that looked good. But you're also breaking up what is one of the best lines in the league per expected goals. And I got this in the article coming out tomorrow, that per money puck for lines that have played at least 50 minutes together, that Turcotte Foegele Laferriere line is 5th in the NHL in expected goals percentage. So they're excellent. And, it's great for Turcotte, but they've got to find a way to get Byfield going. And they've tried a few different things so far. They had him at center with Fiala and Foegele. They moved him to the wing. Now they've got him at center again, this time with Laferriere and Foegele. I don't know. Whatever it is, he has got to get going. And they're going to have to get him to produce, because it's not reasonable to expect Laferriere to produce the way he's producing. Now, Kopitar continues to just do what he does. And So and I don't think that is. I think that can be expected to continue. Like I think there's no reason why, I would have, and I think I did when we did our preseason thing, take the under on points just because I'm just gonna bet against the age as they get older. But he continues to do it. There's no signs of slowing, so I don't see why he can't continue to do it the way he started this season. But you know, some of these guys are going to come back to earth, and you're going to need these other guys that were expected to be impact players to actually be impact players from a production standpoint. It just has to happen.
Well, I mean, I don't plan on slowing the Clarke terrain down, even around corners. We're going to keep the speed going here. But yeah, the team's in an interesting position. It's just like Fiala. It's kind of an enigma with what we have. I don't really think there's an identity fully yet. I think they're still trying to figure that out. But they're able to win games and get some points, especially with, like you said, having the first half of the month pretty much being on the road. I would say if you were to chalk it up, October was a success.
Huge success. Because listen, again, if you can bank these points and be 6-3-2 with, again, virtually, anyways, nothing from Byfield, Deneau, and more.
Doughty injured.
Are you? Yeah. And even let's not forget, Kemper was awesome in Buffalo at the first game of the season. Had a really good game against Boston, and he was hurt. Right, he missed some time after the Ottawa game. So, yes, for all that to go as poorly and the special teams to be as bad as it's been, I think with all of those factors to be where they are, that's huge. It absolutely has been a successful October in terms of from a results standpoint. Now, it's hard to project it going forward because it's easy to say they're both going to regress. The likes of LaFerriere and Clarke are going to regress back to the pack a little bit. The likes of Byfield and Moore are going to see some positive regression. And if that happens, we're all well and good, and things should maybe continue to go okay. But all it takes is one of these things to not happen, and you could be running into a problem. So we'll see what happens, but they certainly do need some of these guys to step up from a production standpoint.
Yeah, it's we need Byfield what we thought to start the season. We need these other players to step up, and hopefully the identity starts to mold itself as it goes on, and we can get some wins on the ice. And with our first sponsor here at THPN is DraftKings. So DraftKings is where you need to start betting on some hockey because the quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck drops on the 24-25 season. Get on all the action for DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple, just like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook, select your team, and place your first bet. So if I'm cracking up the Sportsbook app now, they play Chicago tomorrow. They're favored by a goal and a half. Over-under is 6. So maybe you want to dip a little bit in the over because you think the Kings are going to make some noise. Now, odds always change. So if you like the odds now, go ahead and get in on it. Use the DraftKings Sportsbook to get started there. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers and to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you just bet $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, which is 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill and Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus events expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see dkng.co/ice. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved. Well, I think we got our next segment coming up here, and we're going to be kicking off a little bit of coast to coast, talking about all NHL news, what we kind of find outside of the Kings to be the top news of the week. And I think I'm going to kick it off. The NHL's in Finland, my friend.
Yeah.
Dallas is playing Florida out there. Both their captains both their star centers are Finnish players in Roope Hintz and Barkov. A lot of cool things that I didn't really know about the Finnish culture. So I guess in Liga, the leading scorer has a gold bucket on their head when they take warmups. just kind of like a stick taps to the season that they're having. So I thought that was kind of cool. We've seen some kind of segments come out where Kachuk is trying to pronounce Finnish cities of his teammates, and he's obviously butchering them or whatever. So it's kind of cool, like dip your toe into the culture a little bit that maybe you wouldn't have, and it kind of thrust it into the national spotlight for people in America and Canada.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I was familiar with the gold helmet thing, which is I get a kick out of that. And Barkov in his hometown picks up 4 points, and Florida gets the win, which is pretty interesting. So I did not get a chance to see all of this game. I saw very, very little of this game, but looking at the stats in Natural Stat Trick, the Stars had 12 high danger chances to 3. So Sergei Bobrovsky showed up. That's for sure. So, but no, it is really cool. I kind of like when they do this. It's probably tough for these teams mid-season to have to head over there, I would imagine, but really good for the league. Great for Barkov in his hometown to go pick up 4 points too. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure, because I know the scheduling, they have some like a football, like kind of like a bye. I think teams have like a week here or like 4 or 5 days there, so they're probably doing that early for these organizations. But to grow the game, not that Finland and Sweden need help growing hockey, but to kind of thrust their cultures into the spotlight, and I equate it to a lot of Americans don't know what it's like to watch soccer, like real soccer, where the chants and how crazy it is. And then you see like basketball games over in Europe, they're like lighting firecrackers off indoors and the stadium is literally shaking. And so I think the fandom is just kind of a little bit different over there. And it's really nice to see how they watch hockey and how they cheer for their teams and their players and stuff like that. And, and I just find it fascinating how that comes to be. And that's why it's always been a dream of mine to like go see a World Juniors championship abroad or something like that. And now that they're getting back to the World Championships and maybe Olympics, I think it'd be kind of cool to have that be part of the vacation and go see, watch the sport that you like watching in a different atmosphere.
Yeah, I think it's great. I love it. I wish I had a chance to watch a little bit more of the game today, especially it looked like it was an exciting one. But and the Finns, that's always been a country. They've put some teams together. You mentioned the World Juniors. They've put some World Junior teams together. They've always been a tough out in prior Olympics. So yeah, and again, I love that Rupi Hintz over in Dallas too. He's one of my favorite players in the league. So they churn out some good ones over there.
Speaking of good one, Marc-Andre Fleury, or the Flower as they call him, says goodbye to Pittsburgh. Longtime goalie there. It seems like did he officially say this is his last season?
Yeah, he's retiring after this season.
So, the kind of farewell tour type thing, he meant a lot to that organization. What are some of your fondest memories of Fleury?
The first thing I think of when I think of Fleury is that save he made against the Red Wings, jumping across to clinch that cup years ago. But it was funny. It was also, so here in Rochester, I was at a game. He was in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, and I'll never forget. We were at the game and he had the loudest yellow pads I've ever seen. And so there was some fans in Rochester that were giving it to him, but he was giving it right back, which was kind of cool. It was kind of entertaining. Just a character, right? He's just a character. If you've seen any of the mic'd up stuff, or whether it's like Winter Classic stuff or anything the NHL has done with a mic over the years that Fleury has been involved in, he's entertaining. And to me, it's just kind of like and I know he's not obviously a Penguin anymore, but it's signifying like the end of not only an era for the Pittsburgh Penguins, but like a generation of players that kind of I grew up, if you will, watching like that. I was still in high school when Fleury came to be, and Crosby. I was just graduating high school with that kind of Pittsburgh Penguins early part of their dynasty. And, to see that now here we are, fast forward so many years later, almost 20 years later, and, we're getting to the end of it. So it was just kind of like a bit of a signal or symbolism or whatever that era of players is really getting to the end, and to see it in Pittsburgh where it was for so long, Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Fleury. It's stick taps to Fleury. Heck of a career. I know last couple of years it's is what it is, but he's an entertainer, that's for sure, and he's a good one in the league.
I think the best things that I like about the farewell tours is like all the stories that you hear that you maybe don't always hear. And Fleury is a character, and he plays a lot of pranks on his teammates, plays a lot of pranks on the broadcast teams and stuff like that. And so, like when you're watching those and reading those stories, it's just kind of cool to see the personality of some players, because the NHL isn't really overly broadcast like basketball or football, where maybe the characters aren't really in the forefront. Now with the Amazon series that was out, and some of these things in the farewell tours, you kind of get a little bit more into the personality of the player, and it's always nice to see those types of things.
Yeah.
Speaking of personality and player, one of the best player in hockey, injured with the ankle, out multiple weeks, and then probably some rehab there. Edmonton is already suffering at the bottom of the Pacific. I know I said I wouldn't put it past them just to make the playoffs at any point in the season. But if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, this is not something you want to see for your franchise.
No, it's not. But I still think they're going to be fine. I say this knowing that a lot of these stats came with McDavid, obviously, in the lineup, but they're like one of the top 2 or 3 teams in shot attempts and expected goals at 5-on-5. So they're doing a lot of things well. And it's not as dire as it was last season, I don't think. I know standings wise they're down there, but it's not like the start last season was a bit more prolonged, I think, with how poor it was. And they won immediately after, right? Zach Hyman got up the schneid. They got some other issues over there besides what's going on.
Their penalty kill is horrendous. They're last in the league.
Their special teams in general. Their power play has not been very good either. Their special teams is worse than the Kings. So I'm not worried about the Oilers in terms of I think they're going to be okay. But obviously McDavid, it's an ankle injury, if I'm not mistaken, a high ankle sprain. So that for somebody that's explosive like McDavid, that, if you're an Oilers fan, probably makes you a little bit nervous. But I still think they're going to be fine.
I mean, we just watched Freddie Freeman battle through a high ankle sprain and win the MVP. So not to rub not to rub salt in the wound there.
Thanks for the reminder.
I mean, it's tough there, but I always point to it. Sometimes the good teams just implode, and maybe this is the catalyst that does that. We'll see. Their goaltending has been bad. Their penalty kills have been bad. Their power play has been bad.
It's true.
So maybe it's just the acquisitions that they brought in. Last time I checked, Arvidsson doesn't even have a point. That's probably has changed over the last week. But the acquisitions they brought in haven't been producing. So it's a team that relies on their stars so much, and he's the best player in the league, like to have him missing 3 weeks, and then his ankle and his mobility, to have that out and maybe rehab is a little bit longer. There's only so far you can continue pushing down the seasons. Obviously the Kings are doing well. Vegas is doing well, and so but all you have to do is get into the dance. And so we'll see where the wild card is. And then if everybody's healthy at the end of the year, then who knows at that point, right?
Yeah, no, and you're right. I mean, you don't want to make this a habit of starting seasons really slow like this, because eventually you're going to do that, and you're not going to be able to catch up. But here, as I look at the standings, they're 5-5. They have 11 points. They're 3 points. They're tied for third in the division. To me, it's a little bit different than it was, last year. I'm actually going to go to a comment that Al Smith just made. They're missing Broberg. I am very surprised they did not ink Broberg or match the Broberg offer sheet. I am very surprised at that. Like, I think both of those guys, Broberg and Holloway, would have been good to keep. But if there was one in particular that I would have kept, and I think you guys, for anybody who's listening to this show, knows how big of a Broberg fan I am, especially given the issues on the back end, which I still think isn't drastically worse, if at all, than last year. But still, Broberg is a miss, man. I don't know how they did not re-sign or match that offer sheet. That for me was something is one that they should have done because I think they could use him. I think Al's right. He's having a nice start in St. Louis.
Yeah. San Jose makes a big trade, takes opportunistic, and I'm going to butcher this name. How do you pronounce his name?
Timothy Liljegren.
Liljegren. Kind of out of place in Toronto. San Jose makes a move, opportunistic move. They've been doing that for the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
They went and got Askarov. They went and kind of made these opportunistic signings and trades. What does he bring to the table as a player, and how will this fresh start kind of impact what he has potential for?
Well, he should certainly get an opportunity to see some pretty significant minutes, which he wasn't going to get in Toronto. He hadn't been getting and wasn't getting in Toronto. And I go back to I'm going to go back to Rochester again, but I first saw this was years ago. I believe it was during a Calder Cup run. I don't know if they won it or if they made a deep run, the Toronto Marlies, but they played Rochester in the first round. And I'm at one of the playoff games, and I was just immediately in love with Rasmus Sandin and Timothy Liljegren. And for whatever reason, it just didn't click in Toronto. Now, I don't know if it just was timing to where what I mean by that is they were kind of two young players getting up into Toronto at a time where it was maybe hard for them to, put two young defensemen into the lineup because they were just trying to win playoff rounds and do all this stuff. So maybe they were hesitant to do so, whatever the case may be. But I still think there's a player here. I think he's a good. I'm not going to call him like a purely offensive defenseman, but he's certainly somebody who's a puck moving defenseman. I think it's a good move for San Jose to get a player like this into their organization and kind of help their blue line. This is a team that's a few years away, obviously, from being competitive. But, at 25 years old, they've got a little bit of time here with Liljegren to say, maybe by the time he's entering his quote unquote prime, although these days his prime he's probably in right now. But, if he gets to still in his, 27, 28, 29, then maybe by that point, he's much more established in the NHL. He's playing bigger minutes in San Jose. And maybe at that point, they're a team that's ready to contend or at least be more competitive. So I think it's a fine move for San Jose. I would have loved to see him in Utah, frankly, with some of the injuries they've got on their back end. But I think it's a good move for them. A good opportunity, especially for Liljegren. It could be tough, obviously, in a team like San Jose, but that kid needs to play a little bit more. And I was hoping it'd work out in Toronto, but here we sit, like I said, him and Sandin I fell in love with the Marlies, and they're both in different organizations now.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Coast to Coast, where we talk about all NHL's top news. Speaking of Coast to Coast, our next sponsor here is Game Time, which you can use Game Time Coast to Coast to see all your games, concerts, show needs. I was looking at tickets today, Joe. I was like, hey, look, there's a nice concert in town. I might have to, call into work sick, if you will, for the podcast to go see this concert. But I was using Game Time to go check out those tickets. And part of ticket hunting is being able to see everything up front. So Game Time is able to give you that. So with the super deal and the tiers of deals, talking about lowest price or best seats or best angle or best combination of everything, you can customize your spot and use the app. Like the app grows to what you like to look for. Hey, I like the lower seats, or I like to sit here and kind of see where the best prices in those areas. You can zoom in, zoom out. You can see the seats before you buy. So once you click on the seat, you can get a 360 view of what you're actually looking at. So, maybe not so much in hockey, but in other sports like football or baseball, you don't want to be sitting behind a pole, right? You could see exactly what you're looking at before you price it. You get a low price guarantee, events cancellation protection, job loss protection. So for some reason you buy these tickets and now you can't afford them if you're putting them on layaway and everything like that. Different options there for you at Game Time. So prioritize Game Time picks. Curation is even easier now with sports, concert, comedy, theater, etc. All-in pricing, toggling the feature up front so there's no hidden fees upon checkout. Get that panoramic view of all your seats before you buy. Lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So how do you do this? We'll take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app now. Create an account. Use the code THPN to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code. Spell out THPN in the bar. Get 20% off your first purchase there. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. Well, you know who's been ready for game time there, Joe? The Clarke train, boy. The Clarke train, baby. Man, our bold prediction has not seemed bold enough, and Clarke has been having a phenomenal season. Point per game player so far, 1 goal, 10 assists for the Clarke train, looking like a dream out there. Like the dream that we all knew he could be. Sipping margaritas on a beach in Mexico is what Brandt Clarke looks like. So, I mean, I could talk 25 minutes just straight on and pumping this guy's tires, but let's get really into some of the games here. He's had some bad games. He had the overtime gaff, but overall the offense has looked exactly like what we thought it could be. And then, hey, when you give opportunity to your better players and he rises to the opportunity, now I think he's actually getting a little bit more confidence within the organization. I know I don't really like Hiller's it was almost like a backhanded compliment. Like, hey, what do you think about the 3 assists? Well, yeah, we want him to be a more well-rounded person. It's like, okay, well, can we give guys some stick taps, please? Like,
I want to stick on this for a second. It was just a bizarre. It was to me, it was just bizarre. Now, I want to say, like, I can appreciate the head coach wanting to like kind of keep things more even keel, right? I totally get that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he wants to go out of his way to pump guys' tires necessarily, although I think we've seen him do it with other players.
Yeah.
He's done it with LaFerriere. He's done it with Turcotte. So he's not afraid to do it. It was just a little strange. And for those, so I'm on, LA Kings Insider. Zach Dooley obviously does a great job with the LA Kings Insider. So I'm reading the Hiller quote for those that didn't see it. And, he was referencing the young players like Clarke and LaFerriere and talking about, kind of the points and things like that. And, he did reference at how, when other guys aren't kind of scoring, you need guys to step up and so on. And he said, Clarke's made some, this is Hiller quote, Clarke's made some pretty good plays to get some points. And we saw the one tonight referring to the spinorama. And this is what's just a strange one to me. The thing about assists is sometimes you can get some ones that really don't have much of an effect on the play. Goals, you've got to score the goal. Somebody's got to put it in the back of the net. So sometimes assists can be a little bit misleading. What's bizarre to me about that is the assist, at least on the Kopitar goal, was not only a primary assist, like it led directly to the goal, but it was pretty the spinorama around Pietrangelo, who's no slouch. And
is he just referring to the Edmonton goal? Like he just passed it across the ice and Edmonton had to hit the clapper or what?
Which is fair, like that. So in that sense, like that's a seeing eye shot. What I can acknowledge, I can understand that, but like the other part of that is even that, like, you could easily have a defenseman that instead of making the D-to-D pass for a shot opportunity, this is why I track shot assists, you could have that defenseman throw a puck into shin pads and get it blocked, or you can have a defenseman just throw it down into the corner and it's useless. Mm-hmm. He doesn't do that. So it's just a really, really strange quote for me, especially when you consider Brandt Clarke leads the team in primary assists at 5-on-5 and all situations. So it's not as if Brandt Clarke is picking up a bunch of secondary assists where he's, chipping a puck off the glass. Somebody picks it up, skates, makes a pass on a 2-on-1, and there's Brandt Clarke getting a secondary. No, he leads the team in primary assists. Just a really strange comment for me. I mean, I didn't quite understand it, especially coming off a game like that where it was a big win. And to me, I don't want to, I'll acknowledge that it was a strange comment. I'm going to try not to read into it too much, but like, this isn't the first time where.
But if you keep going on in that comment, he was like, oh, like some of the assists, like he's cheated a little bit. We got to ring him in and like have him play a 2-way game. It's like, why did you draft this kid then?
This is an organizational thing, Randon, and this is what drives me. So now, in fairness, has Clarke been perfect as a defensive player? No, no, but you know what? There's not too many rookie defensemen that are. Lane Hudson is one of the most exciting players in the game right now. Um, Offensively, he's going to have his hiccups as in the defensive zone, but I don't think that's uncommon for rookie defensemen, which is why we were pounding the drum to get him to play more last year so he could start to get his feet under him a little bit sooner. But regardless, like I think the defensive play is going to come in time. We talked about this with Hudson last week, and I think it holds true with Clarke. As he learns and adapts to the pace of the game, the pace that decisions are making, the speed at the way things are coming, he's going to learn tendencies. You know, he's going to learn when to make his certain jumps in the D zone and when he's got to be where and things like that. That will come as he gets more comfortable in the game. So nobody's going to sit here and say he's a perfect player. Well, maybe except maybe you, but no one's going to sit here and say that he doesn't have things to work on. Like, yeah, obviously he has things to work on, but I think at a minimum, what you're hoping for from him is the offensive part of his game there? Is that creativity there? Is that confidence to make plays there? Because if it's not, if you have a guy that is struggling or learning defensively and not doing what he's here to do offensively, now we got a big problem. That's not the case. We got a player that looks the part offensively and looks the part with the puck. You know, he'll improve as, like I said, as he adapts to things in the defensive zone. Call me crazy, but maybe get him a different partner so he doesn't spend as much time there. But I guess that's a story for a different day. But all in all, this is not the first time that we've heard Hiller try to tamp down Brandt Clarke a little bit. And I guess I don't understand why, when he's not hesitant to pump some other guys. I don't know what it is about Clarke that again, I don't want to like overstate this, or you know, that I don't want to say rubs him the wrong way or anything like that. I don't want to go too crazy with it, but like, why? Why say that? Like, we know he's got to work on his defensive game. That's going to be a work in progress for a 21-year-old defenseman. I don't think you had to say that to not like be complimentary of a game where he came out off of 3 assists. It's just strange. I don't know.
Like, how often do you see 3-point games from defensemen? I forget the stat they threw it out online, but like Doughty hasn't. I mean, Doughty, like the last Doughty 3-point game, I think was 2022 or something like that. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, it seems very odd. It seems very odd to be like, you know, I don't know. It's. I was trying to come up with an analogy, but it just seemed. It's like, oh, you like, okay, like your kid, like Joe, you have kids. Like your kid starts to play sports. He had a great game, and then you're like, oh man, but you didn't take out the trash this morning. It's like, okay, well, or hey, your missed bunt, but you had a home run and 3 RBIs, but you missed the bunt. Like, yeah, well, his bunt could have been better. Like, I get that's very like Bill Belichick-y of.
You know what reminded me of, Randy? It was Daryl Sutter. Daryl Sutter used to do these kind of mind games like this, you know, with some guys where he'd really, really downplay like some certain things. And I think it was, for him, it was intentional. I don't know that, you know, Hiller doesn't have that track record of anything, but just to put it a little bit more perspective, you know, as a defenseman, you know, Brandt Clarke has.
Well, before you get into the stats, Al Smith comes in here. Maybe he feels Clarke is overconfident, and then Gwen coming in here. He does not want to. He does not come across as overconfident. I talked to him at the meet and greet. He just seems like a genuine guy. So like, maybe it's the downplay, maybe it's the overconfidence, maybe it's the mind games that Sutter plays. I don't know. Like, there's not, like you said, there's not enough track record with Hiller to know how he is as a head coach, because we talked about this when he took the job. The difference of a head coach and an assistant coach. Assistant coach, you're in the player's corner all the time, right? And you're kind of that buffer. And now, as a head coach, you know, he's got to kind of keep the pulse of the team in a normal range. And like, maybe that's why he gave stick taps to Andres Englund. Like, he was like, listen to the post game, like when he's in the locker room, like he said, hey, it shouldn't take a loss for us to play that game that we play. It shouldn't have taken the San Jose game to play how we did in Vegas. Then he gave stick taps to Kemper for having a good game. Then he gave stick taps to Englund for whatever reason. He just said, hey, Englund, and then he gave up, and then he hugged him. Like, you could have said anybody, like gave props to Clarke at all. And then he just moved on. Like, it was just kind of like weird. Like, it's almost like your sister has a new boyfriend. You don't like him, but you have to be nice because, your sister really cares for him. Like, I don't know. It's just a weird dynamic. I don't know if it's just not wanting to pump his tires, if it's just Hiller if it's the way the organization is. It just seems very strange that you don't want your top 10, your first overall, your defenseman of the future, to be confident and be who he is. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm that way because I'm, I've kind of adopted him as my son on this podcast, and I don't like people taking shots at him, but it does seem weird. It just seems like a weird relationship.
Obviously very much from the outside.
From the outside in, yes.
To be clear, obviously. But yeah, it does. And I don't know. And I do want to reiterate, though, that I can acknowledge that there's probably some things, and my guess is maybe Clarke made some plays or made some mistakes or missed some assignments throughout that game that has Hiller a little irked. So maybe that's where that's coming from with that. It's like, yeah, everybody's going to talk about his assist, but man, I still got to work on this. We got to look through video. We got to fix some of these mistakes he's making defensively. Like, I can appreciate that, from a coaching standpoint. I get that. And I'm sure he again, like to say what we said earlier, no one's if you're the expectation is for him to be a perfect defensive player. That part to me is going to come second for him.
And why does he have to be?
Well, and I know he's a defenseman, so I think people think that defense should come first. Well, for me, what should come first is what makes you what you are, what makes you who you are as a player. And for Clarke, obviously, it's with the puck on his stick, it's reading plays, it's jumping in the plays, it's being an offensive threat. And he does have to be his defensive game is going to be a work in progress, but we know it's going to be a work in progress, and we're only 11 games into this season. So it's just strange. It is just a little, I don't know, because we've seen him be extremely complimentary of other players, and you mentioned England too, which is just bizarre. But I don't know. It is strange. It seems from the outside like a little bit of an awkward or a weird relationship, but I'm not there. I don't want to paint that picture necessarily. I agree with you. It seems that way, but I don't know. It's just strange.
I had this coach one time, and he was always hard on me, and he was hard on a couple other guys on the team too. And it wasn't just because it was like, he didn't like me or whatever. I asked him one time after I retired from playing, said, like, Coach, you were always hard on me. Like, even though we had a great relationship, he was always tough on me. And he said it was because I expected more out of you. I expected more out of you and what you could bring to the table. And maybe that's something where it's like, okay, Clarke, we expect you to be our D1 of the future, but that's only if these things happen. And I think it takes every player responds to things differently. I was never a rah guy. I was like, hey, come have an honest conversation with me. You don't need to pump my tires. You don't need to put me down. Just tell me what you need from me. And maybe with an emotional guy like Brant, you just need to kind of temper that down, and because you always know the confidence is going to be there. And if you say something constructive to him, it's not going to damper that. I don't know. Maybe that's just kind of how it is. And just like with every relationship that you have as a person, the head coach has got to be able to get the most out of all of his players through all the different personalities, and then kind of have that team pushing in the right direction. There's a lot on Hiller's plate, and he's still learning, right? He's only less than 50 games into his coaching career, right? Between last season and this season.
He's probably at that now, though.
Yeah.
I think
so. Less than a full season of being a head coach.
For sure.
So.
And you go back to the comment he made sometime last year. I think Russ might have even asked the question about, being the Rover, and Hiller said, well, I want to get that out of his game a little bit. And it's like, it's just strange. And then, just to go back to, what I was going to say earlier, I get it with the points thing and the assist thing, but I'm looking for guys, especially Brant Clarke. I want to know his game is offensive. His game is a playmaker. His game is creative. That's why I said my bold prediction was he gets over 40 assists, which I thought was bold, but I don't know. Maybe it's not so bold. He leads all defensemen in shot assists. His slot passes. So I've got him with 3 slot passes, which is the same amount as Trevor Moore, which is the same amount as Alex Turcotte, who Hiller has sang praises, rightfully so. It's more than Philippe Danault. So, like, he's doing a lot of really good things. He leads all defensemen in shot assists per 60, and he's second only to Caleb Jones in shot contributions per 60. So when it comes to what is Brandt Clarke supposed to be good at, it's creating offense. He's doing that unquestionably. And if you look at the Hockey Viz website and some of his offensive impacts with the expected goals with him and on the ice and without, he's very, very good offensively. Now, yeah, defensively, it's not there yet. It needs work. You know, his defensive impacts are not great. That is, but I think, again, as a 21-year-old defenseman, to think you're going to step into this league and be, you know, an elite defensive defenseman when that isn't your game to begin with, then your expectations are just not set in a proper place. So to me, he's doing what he needs to be doing. He's showing like he belongs in the league and he can play his kind of game and it can be effective in the NHL. That should at least give him the confidence to say, okay, I can do this. Now, hopefully from here forward, then the work on his defensive game will continue to come, and he'll be able to do that a little bit more frequently. Because imagine if he wasn't producing, now you got a kid that's pressing maybe or frustrated that he isn't producing, and he's got to try to learn the defensive game at the NHL level. So I, you know, not a perfect player, not as well-rounded as he's going to be, but I think everybody, including the Kings, should be really happy. But do you think, Randon, you know, we talked about before the season that, you know, especially if they were going to carry 8 defensemen, there's no way they had plans to play Clarke 82 games. And I think some of these comments, reading between the lines, I don't think they were going to play Clarke 82 games. They kind of been forced to it with Doughty's injury, that things are tight, and obviously with Clarke's production. But with his comments, even after such strong, you know, some productive games, you know, to me, that really seems to me like they want him in the press box for a game here and there just to be able to like see the game from above. I don't think they were going to play him a full season. That's just my opinion. I don't know if you have any thought on that, but with Doughty's injury, they're forced to.
Yeah, I mean, who knows now? I mean, they cycled him last year when they didn't need to, you know, and they obviously trust Andres Englund and Edmondson for some reason, and you know, we'll never understand that. But you know, like I think it's been kind of forced. Like now their hands forced in this situation. How does it look going forward? I don't think you can sit him now, even when Doughty comes back. Like that makes zero sense, you know, like. So
don't be surprised.
Well, I don't know how you pronounce it. Austin Stankovic. We're going back and forth. He's a writer for the Kings, and he said, "Well, you know, when will he get to be a point per game player?" He said, "Probably not when Doughty comes back because he'll be on power play too, and his minutes will get reduced." And I said, "Are you sure he's going to be on power play too?" And he goes, "Has this regime done anything to suggest otherwise?" So
I agree.
But at this point, like if he's a point per game player in January, February, and they give him some time in the press box to learn, then it's BS hyperbole at that point. Like he's done nothing but produce. I mean, in Russell's article about Clarke today, since 2000, only 4 defensemen under the age of 22 have produced at least 11 points through their first 11 games. They are Quinn Hughes, Thomas Chabot, Zach Werenski, and Erik Karlsson. Pretty high praise. A Norris Trophy winner, captain for Vancouver, very good defenseman. Werenski probably on the U.S. national team for the 4. Thomas Chabot's no slouch. So, like he's the 5th all time for under 22. It just, to me, it's like, when will this organization get out of its own way and realize, hey, this is a player here, and we're better with him on the ice?
Yeah. Now, where I'll agree with Austin is, so to me, I at least right now, like he's not going to be on PP1 in a large part because the power play is not scoring right now. Now, I don't know necessarily that that's Clarke, but clearly the Kings prefer a perimeter power play. They want shots from the outside, preferably one-time shots if they can get it. And that's not Clarke's game. Like, Clarke is much more of a facilitator, which is why I think in a 1-3-1 setup, he could be utilized on the left circle, which is much more of like the, quote unquote quarterback / playmaker on that left circle. If you've got a lefty in the bumper and they've got lefty Kempe on the right circle, like that makes a lot of sense to me. Because if you think about it, like, he's not going to make a ton of seam passes from the top, but regardless, like, that's why Doughty works there, is he just hammers pucks from the blue line, and that's what they want. Right now, we've seen it, I've shown it, and it'll show up again in the article tomorrow. There is no offense from the slot down in front of the net. It is nothing there for the Kings, and it's no secret why you're not scoring. And power plays these days that are successful, like, I don't want to say the cross seam pass is like non-existent, because it is clearly existent, but you need to have some sort of down low presence. You need to have some sort of slot presence, and the Kings have none of it. So getting back to Clarke, like, I don't know if he holds power play 1, because stylistically, for what they're trying to do, unless they make a change here,
but their style isn't working.
No, it's not. And I think I guess they could make the case that it worked with Doughty. Because Doughty did, he had some production on the power play last year. I don't think it's a high percentage way of doing business, shots from the point. But it worked last year for the Kings. So unless the power play really starts buzzing, which it still could, there's talent there, but unless it starts buzzing, like, I can totally see Clarke sliding down to PP2 and Doughty taking PP1. I right now, that's where my money is, if that, whenever Doughty gets back.
I mean, I think it's a high percentage chance just because the organization. I mean, and they do time and time again, and so. But I mean, did it really work last year? Like, I
think they finished just outside the top 10. I mean, it was upper half, yeah. If I recall.
Yeah, 12th.
So, you're right. I mean, and listen, I don't think that's, and I think the reason that the Kings were not seeing their power play be as effective is A, again, as I mentioned, there's no down low play, there's no slot play, and B, so they want to make the seam play to Kempe, but it's tough for penalty kills these days have done a much better job of cutting off the seam passes. You're seeing more and more and more power plays be effective with a lot of down low plays, or plays from low to slot, like low to bumper, those triangle plays that I've always talked about before. And there's just none of that with the Kings right now. None of it.
Yeah.
The amount of times, if you watch a Kings power play, the amount of times you could freeze frame it, pause the TV, and you see five guys on the perimeter. I mean, I've seen it way too often. And, I know some of this is personnel. We've talked about how they're missing that right-handed, player when they had Velarde, but they're in a tough spot because they have so many lefties. But that's still a problem for the Kings, and it's showing up in the power play right now at the start of the season.
So more stats. Clarke is the only defender, or the third defender, to be at least a point per game player through the first 11 games, joining Rob Blake and Larry Murphy. So that hasn't happened since 91. So, I mean, it's a special start to the season. And I think it's weird that this team is so down on it. And I don't know why. Like, why do they try to pigeonhole? I guess it's a topic for, different discussion, but they pigeonhole players from like Fiala and Clarke to be players that they're not. So,
and with the whole, you mentioned Fiala and the situation recently. So he was scratched against San Jose because he missed a team meeting and he took accountability for that. But, the more and more that you see the players like Fiala and like Clarke, yet you try to fit them into the way the Kings as an organization want to play. You're right. Like, why go get these guys? Why? Why go get these guys and then have a coach say, we got to keep it simple. We got to go, pucks in deep. We got to get shots in the point and traffic in front. We got to go north south. This is 1997. Those comments, like I go back to Byfield. He had Hiller had a comment on Byfield a couple of games ago, and I don't know, like it. I think it was a 2-on-1 where he shot the puck, or he looked to make a play instead of shooting the puck, and he's got to keep it simple. Pucks on net. I understand the sentiment there, but I disagree with how you go about that, because you want to encourage these guys to make plays and to be creative and give them the confidence to do that. And like if Quentin Byfield's coming down and he sees a goalie that's set, why shoot that? You're not scoring. I guess you could say you could have the old pass off pad play. That is an option that he could have done, but he's looking to make a play. And it's like, well, if I shoot it on a goalie that's set, the chances of me scoring are pretty low. But if I can connect on this pass, it's all but a guaranteed goal. Get the goalie moving side to side. So, I
mean, let's take the spinorama goal, right?
Yeah.
Clarke does a spinorama. He's wide open. He's one-on-one with the goalie. He could easily have shot that.
Great. Yes. That's a great call, Randon. Yes. Because
nobody in front of him. He easily could have shot that.
Yeah.
And then he made the pass. But if you look at the pass in slow motion, there were sticks in that lane.
Mm-hmm.
They were a little bit late to the party, but there were sticks in that lane. What if that pass gets tipped off the stick and there's no goal there?
Then you know what?
People are going to be like, oh, Clarke should have shot that. He made an excellent move. I mean,
100%. Randon, you are spot on. And you know what? The shot there would have been the wrong decision. You know why? Because the goalie's set. It's a way easier save for the goalie to make. It's a heads-up play by Brandt Clarke to have the calm and the patience on the puck, which, again, something should be praised. That should be stuff that – forget the assists and forget, if you want to downplay assists or whatever, really weird from Hiller. But you should be able to talk about the presence of mind that he has to, A, make the spin play, keep possession, and then make a heads-up play to Kopitar, who has a tap-in, rather than just – because there's a lot of young players that could make a play like that and be holy crap and just immediately shoot the puck, to your point, Brandon. Mm-hmm. And the goalie's at the top of his crease. It's an easy save. It's an easy save for a goalie. But the play to make there is the play he made to Kopitar, even if it doesn't go through, because you're not scoring on the play and on a shot. And if the pass were to get tipped, you're right. People would be yelling for him to shoot the puck, but that's not going in. Percentage wise, it's a really low percentage play. So I think that's a great call out by you. And that's the stuff that should be encouraged is making that pass to get the goalie moving. And the goalie was way out of position, probably because he thought it was going to be a shot coming, mm-hmm. and they took advantage of a defensive breakdown by Vegas. But those are the types of plays that you want to encourage and you want your guys to be making. So you can, even if you want to downplay the assists or whatever, you should be praising the poise on the puck, the calm, and the wherewithal to make a play like that, because it's impressive from a 21-year-old.
Very much so. So I mean, everybody's high, me included. The conductor of the Clarke train. We're at full steam. But I think we're only in first gear. I think we're going to see even further progressions from his game, not only offensively but defensively. But I didn't even expect 11 points in 11 games. So not saying that he will or won't, but let's go over some stats on what some records are. So if you look at LA Kings record for Mr. Drew Doughty is 60 points. So 10 goals, 50 assists for 60 points. I brought it up on Twitter. Does Clarke get that? Because obviously he's on pace for 82 at the moment. But like we said, with the Doughty coming back, maybe going down to power play 2 time, do you still think he gets 60?
Well,
or 61.
So no. I mean, I didn't think that to begin with. Remember, my bold prediction, I know yours wasn't that either, but my bold prediction was over 40 assists, which – again, I really thought was bold. That is bold, is it not, Randon? I mean, but the way he's making it look, no, because here's the thing: I don't think he can score double digits like Doughty has the capability of. like I don't see a goal scorer from Clarke. So it's all going to have to come from assists, and that means he's going to have to get like 55 assists. And while that may happen one season, I'd be hard pressed to say it's going to happen this season. Obviously, 10 and 11 games, he's off to a pretty good start. But I have to say, I have to take the under on the 60, just because I have to imagine that his pace is going to slow down here. But and part of the reason too, Randon, is because I don't think he's a goal scoring threat the way Doughty was.
I think he can. If you were asking me to place a bet based on the organization and where his ice time will probably go down when Doughty comes back, that would be the reason. But I see a player here that's going to be getting plenty of assists to make that happen. I easily could see 5 and 55 or 7 and 53, something like that. Now he needs 61 there. And the team, to be honest with you, isn't really playing that well offensively from a whole team standpoint. The 5-on-5 numbers are good, but the finishing with a lot of their top players is not good. If the power play kicks up a notch, what if they get to over 20% from the power play in November and he gets a little bit more help there on that assignment? I still think it's definitely possible. And obviously, I'm fine with I still think 50 is bold. I still think 50 points, what our original bold thing is, bold, but seeing the way he's come into the team and coming to the league, and I do think having a hot start does help with the 50 being more, or the 60 being more available
in play. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This is the crazy thing, is the power play is not even clicking. Imagine if the power play was going, he could have 15 points by now if the power play was going. So no, I mean, it's good. It's, just to tie up the bow on Clarke, it's a little strange that some of the comments coming from his head coach, given some of the things, but just hopefully he keeps doing what he's doing. And you know what? If Hiller doesn't want to get a ticket, Randon, there's plenty of seats for other people.
Hey, yeah, there's no need to sell tickets if people don't want them. The highest point total for over 50-point season with less than 10 goals was Paul Coffey back in 92, 93. And he did that in 50 games, 57 points in 50 games.
He was special. So
all-time leader in points in a season is Larry Murphy in 80-81 with 76. I think I definitely take the under on that right now. But with what we've seen from Clarke and what the expectation is does Clarke have it in him to be a point per game defenseman in his career? Or
yeah, I mean, listen, we're all very bullish on Brandt Clarke and what he can do offensively, and I think this is a player that, as he gets more physically mature and as he learns the speed of the game and gets more comfortable in the NHL, this is. So if you had Doughty, what was Doughty's 61?
No,
yeah,
Clarke would need 61 to be
okay. Yeah, I mean, I think Clarke can I'd say comfortably. I think he can definitely be a player that can. He'll beat Doughty's 60 points at some point in his career, probably fairly earlier in his career, I would assume.
You mean by February? No.
So, whether or not he gets to 80, I don't know, but I do think this is a 70-point defenseman threat as he gets, not this year, but in the next couple of years as he gets comfortable. I just think he's that talented. He's got that type of brain. He's got that type of vision. So, yeah.
And if they can get him that type of partner, it'd be even easier.
I
had to get one last job in. But
we've done the whole show, and I haven't even mentioned, about, although, credit Stick Taps, he's got 3 goals, so maybe 4 years, 3.85 per. Maybe it'll be worth it after all, Randon.
Well, we definitely will see. Hey, it's those assists that are
right.
And coming across the ice to get him those hard clappers.
Those silly assists.
But hey, 97 miles an hour is still a howitzer. So
shoot it.
Shoot. So, well, Joe, it's been an honor. to talk to you, my friend. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Please hit that like button on the way out, man. We got to get those algorithms on the way up. So hit that like button on the way out. Share our podcast for all your Kings fans out there. Get them into the sport. More the merrier. Please, tell your friends about us. See the articles coming out. Joe is getting one that comes out. You said tomorrow?
Yeah,
comes out tomorrow. Russ just did one about Clarke today. So check those out at hockeyroyalty.com. We haven't mentioned in a while. We still got plenty of shirts. Let Kev be Kev shirts. $20. Sizes small through XXL. You can get the more Kev combo for $38 right now. DM all orders to at NHL Russell via DM, and then we accept Venmo at Hockey Royalty. You can do the code word dispense, but that's just going to be our standard right now. We're just going to keep that as our standard order price. And maybe who knows? Maybe I'll get an official Clarke Train T-shirt going here for this season. Man, great episode. Clarke's humming. I love it. The train is going. Get your ticket. Get all aboard the Clarke train. And as always on this podcast, go Kings go.